Hey, what's up, guys? Dustin Steiner from Esports Max here. I'm joined by our resident MOBA expert, so to speak. Anyway, Mr. Jeremy Waxman. How you doing, Jeremy?
Good. How are you?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, now, wasn't it a great first day of the Smite World Championships?
It was, actually. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of things. So I figured, we can take a little time, go over, kind of first impressions, what we saw, the good, the bad, the ugly, etc.
All right.
One of the first things that came out, they did a little reveal video for season 2. Got a lot of people talking. There was a couple things in there. There's a different change to mechanic of leashing, that the monster doesn't become immune when pulled, it just regens health, so that's going to change things. One of the biggest things people were talking about, and that's one aspect, is just the change to the conquest map. So we're talking about that. They were also just talking about just different things, how it might affect the metagame. And Barracuda was talking about the ADC no longer getting blue buff and how that might change things for him. He doesn't want ADC anymore, so
yeah, it might be the solo laner now
she's
for cognitive.
Trying to convince his teammates to switch now if he wants his blue buff. But so that's fun. So more specific to this actual tournament, it's been talked about over and over again, and I think it's worth repeating one more time. The prize pool is just over $2.6 million, third largest prize pool of any tournament in the history of esports.
Which, I will remind you again, is larger than League of Legends. They want you to know that.
It's apparently really important.
It's very important that you know this. Larger than League of Legends.
I mean, we joke, but it is very cool,
yes.
and it shows, kind of the power of crowdfunding. Dustin, you wrote a piece a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very, very cool. It shows that there's a pretty passionate fan base out there. The disappointing part is that most of that fan base doesn't seem to be here.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I wouldn't say that no one showed up. There's certainly a lot of people here.
There are,
but it's not wall-to-wall people. We're not sure if that's just because it's still Friday. People might be working. They might be still trying to get here. They might have only wanted to come in for quarterfinals to the finals run, which I can certainly understand that. Tournament structure was actually very kind of strange. Actually, it was like pseudo double elimination, but not really for the first day. Why don't you run me through that, Jeremy?
It's best of ones in the first round.
Sure.
So, your first loss doesn't eliminate you. It just kind of knocks you down a peg. But the second loss, you're out. So 2 teams were actually eliminated today, and we'll talk about the games in a little while. But yeah, it was a strange format because as you said, it was sort of double elimination, that if you lose 2, you're out. But it was best of ones. Talked to the players a bit. None of them really seemed to be a fan of it, just because in one game, even if one team is a lot better than the other, anything can happen in one game.
Right.
So it was a little bit strange. Certainly not something that we're used to seeing at a world championship, because even if you count it as double limb, still you lose 2 games and you're out of worlds seems a little...
a little harsh.
So not a huge fan of that format. One of the players was actually telling me that, and this, don't take this as absolute because this is just what one player told me. I'm not even gonna, say anything more. But actually, he mentioned it in the interview, I think. I should remember if he just had the camera on or off. So in case it was off record, I'm not gonna say who it was. But he was telling me that there are plans for next year to do it differently, to bring in the players beforehand to do the preliminary round, so that it's not so harsh and so immediate that after when they play, you might just be gone.
Yeah, that's very similar to the internationals format in Dota 2.
Yeah, so. and that makes a lot more sense. So I do hope that they go there with that, because it is kind of a harsh format. After that, it becomes a little more normal. With your quarterfinals, finals, and then going to actual series, not just best of ones. And
it is worth noting that it's still single elimination, though. And once you get to quarterfinals, if you lose one series, you're out. With the exception of, once you get up to the semifinals, then the losers get dropped into a consolation match for third place and fourth, because there is a differentiation in prize pool.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. So overall, in the end, it makes sense. It's just the first part seems a little rushed.
Sure.
And again, because they're trying to fit an entire world championship into 3 days.
Yeah.
Which, it's understandable that you need to rush things to that point. I'd like to see in the future them not have to cram it all into 3 days.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of the biggest thing. And then, I don't want to harp on the negative. It's just, we need to mention it, and then I'll talk more on the positive. There were a couple technical issues. There was one point where the background music was overtaking the casters, or not the casters, the analyst desk before the tournament started. They fixed it fairly quickly, though, to their credit, and that was good.
Mm-hmm.
We know very well that audio issues happen.
Yeah, that's for sure. And really, we're not sure if this was on the stream as well. This is at the venue,
right?
So if there was no technical issues on the stream, obviously we have no way of knowing that. So
that would be good if it's not. But to their credit, they fixed it quickly, and
right.
that's impressive because we know how difficult it can be to resolve those kinds of things. So they have a good staff here. There was one time where the main screen in the venue, and again the stream might have been fine, but the main screen in the venue, the only one you could really see is the large screen in the middle. While they were talking on the analyst desk, they had just the Smite logo on it. They forgot to switch over. Minor things. Overall, I was actually very impressed with the quality of the event.
Sure. Yeah, me
it was
too.
Very well run. The presentation quality is good. It doesn't look like it was some too big company doing.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. No. Everything was pretty. Generally pretty good. The staff, the players, fans, everyone just seemed very excited to be here in Atlanta, doing this tournament. Obviously everyone's very excited about the future of Smite. I seem to recall the echoes of we're number 3 at Smite launch tournament, and it actually did prove true considering they're the third largest tournament. So just keep going, guys. Number 3. Number 3.
So yeah, like kind of already touched on, the high-res employees, the players are all really friendly, really eager, to work with us, to work with each other. It was really, really very cool to see. So those are really kinds of the things that I noticed, on the first day. We'll see what happens. Obviously, it's just going to get to be a more electric atmosphere over the next 2 days as we really, get into the quarters and semis, really get to the point where people are knocked down and really starting to play for the big bucks.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I do have to mention this. I know some of you out there might not care about this all that much, but for us in the press, we're very impressed with Hi-Res. After every match, they had a mini press conference where members of the media could go talk to the players, ask questions in kind of a roundtable press, press conference format. I haven't really ever seen that from anybody else, any other, organizer out there. And, we've worked with pretty much everybody now.
Yeah, it was, I've seen close to that level, but this was really impressive.
Yeah.
Especially, for a tournament where, again, they're trying to do so much in such a little amount of time, to be able to think ahead about that, and to figure out how to do it effectively was really impressive. Really well done by Hi-Res.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with that. So anyway, without further ado, let's get right down to the games for today.
Yeah,
that's what we're here to see. Who cares about the little minutia, right?
Yeah. So not gonna take up a whole lot of time. Obviously, for those who want to take a lot of time, you can go to the stream, which was twitch.tv/SmiteGame. They have past broadcasts. They're actually doing a rebroadcast, so that might almost be done by now. But you can always go to the past broadcasts and watch them. Definitely some good stuff. But we'll give you just 5-second rundown of each game, just so you can get a quick idea of how they went. We'll start with the first match. Which was, and yes, I do have my notes here I'm going off of. It was the Chinese team, DID, versus COG Red. COG Red, is the #1 North American team, considered by many to be probably the favorites to take the entire tournament, and they lived up to that billing in their first game. They absolutely destroyed DID. It was actually pretty funny because Snoopy gave up first blood. And then that was literally the only death that COG Red suffered all game.
Yeah.
They just absolutely showed. They went 25-1 in kills. It was a 15.5-minute surrender from DID. It was ridiculous.
I don't think that DID could have been more destroyed if COG picked their keyboards up, walked across the stage, and smashed it across their faces. That just a paint a graphic image for you there.
It was literally just COG beating them into submission. So we're just going to keep killing you until you can't take it anymore. And apparently 15.5 minutes was their pain threshold.
Yeah, and it's just it's too bad for the Chinese teams that they haven't had the client that long. They only just now got up to the point where they have all the gods that we do. So
I think they said like in the last week or something.
yeah, it was something ridiculous.
Like 5 new gods that they just got in like the last week, and like some of them are good, so they had to know them.
It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
but you know, obviously they're here, and you know, they're at least putting in a good effort.
Yeah.
They're trying.
Absolutely.
So moving right along, we have We Love Bacon, my favorite name at this event. Well, okay, it's tied. Anyway, so We Love Bacon versus SK Gaming, obviously a very big esports organization from Europe. So it was generally speaking a much better like game than the first game. The first game was just like a stomp. SK Gaming just kind of like, it was still one-sided, but it was a little bit of a longer game. It was a little more drawn out. SK generally had like better teamwork than We Love Bacon.
Yeah, they played. So with Cog Red, it was, as I said, they just kept killing their opponents until they surrendered. So SK, when you say it was more drawn out, it wasn't drawn out. It was a quick game. It was just that in comparison to
Well, that's
Cog Red,
what I'm saying. Like
it was still a pretty short game. It was SK dominating, but the way they did it was a little bit different because they focused on objectives a little bit more. They completely took over the jungle, like almost actually pretty much right from the beginning of the game. They said that We Love Bacon didn't play the early parts correctly, so they were able to take more. So they basically just focused on the objectives, made We Love Bacon come to them, and then killed them because they had the advantage.
Yeah.
And just pretty much did that until they won the game. So it was very one-sided for SK. They just did it a little bit differently than Cog Red did.
Right.
So the next game featured the other Chinese team, OMG, up against Europe's Titan. So this one was our first close game of the day.
Yeah.
OMG had an early game team comp, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
In I guess every game ever, Chinese teams are pretty notorious for being incredibly aggressive.
Yeah, League of Legends, Dota,
yeah.
It doesn't matter. They just love to kill people early.
Yeah, that's their thing. So they were able to take an early lead. It probably wasn't as easy as they thought because Titan surprised themselves. Titan didn't plan on fighting OMG, but they ended up doing it.
Yeah.
So it didn't go quite as well as they expected, but OMG still had the early lead. However, because they experienced more resistance than they expected, the game went later than they wanted. Titan had an amazing late game team comp. And even though OMG were ahead towards the late game, they decided to go for Gold Fury at a time when they probably shouldn't have. They got it, but they were wiped after that.
Yeah, to their ultimate detriment. They were just caught completely out of position. You know, they put too much value on that objective, especially that late in the game where, like, you know, one slip and you're done for.
Yeah.
Especially in a game like Smite.
Yeah.
It's like a very fast paced game. You know, power spikes in this game seem to happen every 4 minutes or so. So I guess they just caught the tail end of one of those.
Yeah. So once that happened, so they got wiped, and the game was completely in Titan's hands after that. It wasn't even contested after that.
No.
So OMG went from ahead to making that one call that lost them the game.
Yep, and then with the next game, you know, comes up. It's Cog Prime versus the number 2 NA team, which, you know, obviously sister team to Cognitive Red, versus 404 Name Not Found. Now, also a great name. That was the Bacon and 404 tied for favorite.
Great part about them is that their logo is 404 logo not found. So
yeah,
they really committed to the whole idea.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. I like their uniforms. They're cool team. But unfortunately for them, they had some visa issues, and they're playing with two replacements. Yeah. You know, that seems to be to their ultimate detriment, because Cognitive Prime made sure that they didn't find any wins either, in addition to their name. So I feel bad for that pun now, but you know, whatever, it's fine. It was just a complete stomp for Cognitive. There wasn't really anything that 404 could put on the board at all.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I think even with their full starting roster, Cog Prime still would have been expected to crush them.
Yeah, they were still the favorites, easily.
Yeah. I mean, to their credit, I mean, Name Not Found, they knew coming into this that their chances of winning any games were pretty slim.
Yeah.
So they came with the right mindset, just to come in, try to learn from teams that are better than them. See what they're doing that maybe Name Not Found hasn't been doing, so they can pick up some new strategies,
Sure.
this and that. So they had a good attitude. They were still willing to talk to the press afterwards, which is always good to see. And even after a loss, that you're still willing to come out and
Definitely
meet people. So I do want to give them credit for that. It's tough to go into an important match, feeling like you really don't have a chance, and they probably did. I mean, they wouldn't say that, and you shouldn't. You should never say that, like, oh, I know we can't win, but. They pretty much
I mean, they knew that they were certainly the Davids and the David versus Goliath of that particular matchup. But it's I think it'll still be good for them though, like going back home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously the fans in Brazil are going to love the fact that they're even on the world stage. Right. Actually, I'm sorry, not Brazil. Latin America. Brazilian team was We Love Bacon. But yes, they're just, everyone's going to be really hyped to see them on world stage. Hopefully, we see more from them in the future.
Yeah. I mean, and again, their scene isn't as developed, so with more time and better competition, we'll should be able to see, better
see a
things
bit
from
more.
them. Yeah. Okay, so the next match, as we scroll the right one here, okay. So again, we have our Bacon friends,
which with We Love Bacon versus DID. The Doge is Doge or Doge is dog.
Yeah.
Okay, I reversed them. They got the letters right, so I guess that was kind of easy to do.
Yeah. So we were talking about the Chinese teams before, and while they're at a disadvantage in Smite, just because of the difference when the game is released. China's a team, or a region rather, that's usually held to a pretty high standard. I mean, particularly by themselves. Like, they always hold themselves to a really high standard.
Yeah.
And particularly going up against a team like We Love Bacon, who also, is not going to, in most people's opinion, will not be on the same level as NA or EU teams.
Sure.
This would seem to have been the opportunity for DID to kind of redeem themselves from, getting crushed by Cockroach earlier. Didn't happen.
No.
We Love Bacon pulled it out. And it's interesting because you would, depending on your point of view, you would expect at least one win.
Yeah.
From a Chinese team. And maybe that's unfair,
Sure.
and maybe that's more based on preconceived notions than it is, the reality of the situation. But I would think they certainly would have expected it of themselves.
Sure.
I don't think they would have expected an 0-2 out of themselves. So they're out. It moves We Love Bacon onto the quarterfinals, so definite credit to them, for something that many people were saying more as a joke, because they have a little cult following here at Worlds, mostly because of their name. People were, rooting for them for that reason, so I think it gave them more of a reason to cheer once, they actually moved on to the quarterfinals and still have a chance here after day one.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be pretty cool to see, how the fans respond to that once they say, oh wow, it's not just the name, they're actually still competing here.
Yeah. You could say that they went out of the frying pan of almost being eliminated and into the fire quarterfinals. The
You
best
could
of
say
three.
that,
Well, I just did, so I hope you enjoyed that. YouTube. Anyway, so next up we have it was OMG versus Name Not Found.
Yeah,
and again, I really feel for Name Not Found here. This match, it wasn't. I don't know. I don't think it was completely one-sided, but they put up a good fight against OMG, who admittedly does look a little shaky, even in victory.
They do. So we're not going to harp on the game itself too much. I think the conclusion was an easy one to draw before the game started. But OMG's path now is they lost their first game to Titan when they started out ahead because I think they underestimated their opponents. They're in the quarterfinals now, but only by beating, with all due respect, the weakest team here in 4-4 Name Not Found. It does bring up some questions for how OMG is going to fare. I don't think so. I think they'll actually have a pretty fair estimation of where they are. They've shown that they're capable of winning games, but so the only team that they beat, was Name Not Found.
Right.
So I think they'll be aware that they can't just assume that it's a free win.
Sure.
But I think they'll be aware that OMG is going to be the weakest or second weakest team in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do have to keep in mind, though, that they are representing OMG. They probably have a lot of pressure on them to win.
I'm sure they do.
Tomorrow. So, we'll have to see if that pressure is going to make them win. But anyway, so let's get right into the quarterfinal matches. The first match.
Wow, no. You just skipped 2.
I did.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, we can just start going to turn it off there if I can't have to edit it.
It's fine now. Just give me enough space to where I can just edit it out.
I think we have plenty of space.
Yeah. Okay. So, So starting off next, we're gonna get up into the next match. It's Cog Red versus SK Gaming, and
that was,
why don't you walk us through that, Jeremy?
That was a big match. It was far and away the match that everyone here was looking forward to the most.
Mm-hmm.
It was North America's best team versus one of Europe's best teams in SK Gaming. Cog Red has been super dominant. SK Gaming, has the reputation as being beasts on LAN, and A versus EU. It had all the makings of a great game, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
It was a very close game for most of it, which is good to see. It would have been pretty disappointing, if it was just a stomp, one way or the other.
Sure.
So it was definitely good to see these teams really going at it, giving it everything they had. Even though one loss doesn't knock you out of the tournament, it's still pride's on the line, and you want to try to see directly into the semis rather than having to play through quarterfinals.
Sure.
So it was a great game. In the end, it was SK Gaming's teamwork, map coordination that really won out for them, and because they just started making play after play, just catching out COG, getting them where they wanted them, winning fights, taking objectives. It was actually funny, and it really told us a lot in a press conference afterwards. Someone asked them, SK Gaming, even though the wards were pretty even, how did you guys have such control of the jungle? And their jungler responded with, wait, the wards were even? We didn't have a lot more than them?
Yeah.
So even though, the warding situation wasn't totally one-sided, SK felt like they had it lit up like a Christmas tree, and COG was blind, even though that's not the case, because they just had such good control, such good team synergy. We talked about that earlier in their first game, and now against probably the strongest opponent they could go against, they still maintained that. They still kept up that level of teamwork, and that's huge.
Sure.
That's the kind of thing that can make you win championships.
Yeah.
So it was really a great match. It was a lot of fun for the fans. It's going to be a huge confidence booster for SK Gaming since they beat the team that most people consider to be the best in the world right now.
Sure.
So COG Red's still in it, but it's going to be big for SK Gaming, and it was just a really fun match to watch.
Yeah, I mean, there were a ton of storylines going into that match too, like you said. Not only was it NA versus EU and all that stuff, but it was also a rematch of a match at the Smite launch tournament, which was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
So to see it again on such a big world stage is pretty cool to see.
Definitely.
So moving on to the next match, and the last match of the night was Titan versus COG Prime. Obviously Titan, the Cinderella story of this tournament, or this year even, coming up through the Challenger Series and then, making it into the wild card and then winning the European regionals. So, they're expected to do great things here, and they went up against COG Prime, who obviously NA team number 2 behind COG Red. People again are expecting them to do great things as well because of the organizations behind them. But I mean, unfortunately for Titan, COG Prime just was not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game that I would have liked to have seen have been a little bit closer than it really was. Titan is a talented team, but COG just had their number. They had the game the whole way through. The only little hiccup is that towards the end of the game, I don't know if maybe they just got a little bit overcautious or what. They took probably a little bit longer to close it out than they should have. If you talk to them, they'll probably tell you the same thing. And it may be, seeing COG Red, their sister team, drop a game that they thought they were supposed to win earlier, maybe made them feel a little, let's not take any risks. Let's make sure that, we get this one. So that's a possibility. But either way, while it may have taken a little bit longer to close out, they sold out a little bit, they still won. Sure. There was never really any sustained period of time where you felt like Titan had a chance in that game, which is a little bit unfortunate. But it just shows you what a strong team Cognitive Prime is, and it got them a semifinal berth. So
yeah,
there you go.
So let's looking ahead towards tomorrow. We've got some great matches lined up.
Absolutely.
Finally, to best of threes, and I know I say finally after day one, but it was a grueling day for everyone involved.
It was,
press, fans, doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
If you're watching that many matchups, you're gonna get a little tired. So, obviously we're moving on to that. So it's We Love Bacon versus Titan up first. This match is going to be very interesting to me to see. Like I said, Cinderella story Titan, despite having just taken a loss at the end of the night, they're playing first tomorrow against We Love Bacon, who, the Brazilian team, still in the tournament.
Yep.
No one thought they were going to make it this far. I don't think anyway.
Not a lot.
Not a lot of people.
Well,
maybe that's a little unfair.
Yeah, maybe to the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals, they might have made it, but what I'm saying is no one expects them to go further than this.
Probably not.
So Titan's heavily favored, but I think that We Love Bacon is going to come out performing very well tomorrow. I think that they have a lot on the line.
Yeah.
They want to stay alive in this tournament. They want to prove to the world that Brazil is just as good as NAEU. So, that's my opinion on We Love Bacon. I think that We Love Bacon's going to go forward. What's your opinion on Titan?
I will disagree with you. I'm going to say that Titan is going to win this one. There's a few factors. I don't disagree with that with your points. I think absolutely We Love Bacon wants to prove things, not just the world, but to themselves.
Sure.
That they are a good team. With that said, I think Titan is the better team. I think it's just the state of the game right now, and it's going to change as things go on. But right now, an NA or EU team should always have the advantage over a team from any other region, just by nature of how long they've had the game for.
Sure.
Their ability to practice. I think it was not We Love Bacon, I think it was Name Not Found. They were talking about how outside of NA and EU, they don't have the same facilities. They don't have the same ability to get together and practice. People, are doing their own thing. They're just playing from home. These types of things. So it definitely is harder for a team like that to really compete with the best teams in the world. And Titan, we say Cinderella story. A lot of people use the word underdog. It's kind of a misnomer in that compared to COG Prime or COG Red, they might look, like they're in a lower class compared to those teams. But, they even said it. They keep winning tournaments and people still call them underdogs. This is a very talented team.
Sure.
There's no doubt about it. Are they the best team in the world? Well, they're going to have to answer that question.
That's true.
And right now, most people would tell you no. But they're a very talented team. And I think We Love Bacon's going to put up a good fight. I don't expect it to, just be completely one-sided. But I think that the general expectation and my personal expectation is that Titan's going to be able to come out on top of that one.
Yeah. And to play devil's advocate to myself here a little bit, Titan used to be a cognitive team. Now, COG, obviously very well known for picking up the best Smite teams in the world. Maybe not everything else, other esports, whatever. Their brief League of Legends stint didn't go so well. But, Smite, they've been pretty dominant, and I think they're pretty happy with that success. And the fact that they picked up, this team as Cognitive Aquila, it just goes to show that they're strong.
Right.
They're certainly right up there with the other cognitive teams.
They're definitely.
All right, so moving on, we get down to the other quarterfinal match, which is OMG versus COG Red.
Yeah, and this one it shouldn't be close.
No.
It's OMG is a team that I think has a lot of potential.
Sure.
It's a team that I think once they have more time with the game, more time playing with each other, can be very good.
Yeah.
I don't think they are currently at a level where they can compete with Cognitive Red. Granted, Red did drop a game earlier, but that was the SK Gaming,
Sure.
an EU team, a team that is generally considered stronger.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on earlier how OMG's path to the quarterfinals has been one loss and then a victory over, again, with all due respect, the weakest team here right now. That's their path to the quarterfinals.
Sure.
So that doesn't exactly inspire fear in your opponent.
No, for sure.
So I would definitely expect a Cognitive Red win. I doubt OMG can take a game off of them unless they do something crazy that's going to surprise Cognitive.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it should be a fairly straightforward victory for Cog.
The only thing that I think might get in the way of that is the fact that OMG traditionally has a ton of support staff, and we saw them get on the bus with us this morning.
Yeah.
There was a good 4 or 5 support staff for that 5-person team,
Mm-hmm.
and if anybody can come up with a strategy to knock Cognitive Red out of this tournament, it's OMG.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I think it's going to happen, is if they study every bit of film they can find tonight and come up with the ultimate strategy to knock them out. Some crazy pick ban, something.
Yeah.
Something would have to happen.
And it will take something unexpected, certainly, and
twice.
Yeah, and
Twice.
that's gonna be the tricky part.
Yeah.
Is even if they can figure out a way to do it once,
They have
it's
to do
probably
it
not
again.
gonna work again.
Yeah.
And so, is it possible? Anything's possible.
Sure.
So I will never state, with 100% certainty this team is going to win, this team is going to lose. But let's just say if Cog Red loses,
Upset
everyone
of the tournament.
everyone who's watching is going to be shocked.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously that's it for the quarterfinals. We have 2 teams waiting in semifinals for these teams: SK Gaming and Cog Prime. Both very strong squads. Both, undefeated through this tournament so far. Which I guess isn't saying all that much. 2 wins,
Yeah,
but
still.
In a tournament where you can lose more games where you win than you win to get in, I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
Obviously referring to some of the statistics that were displayed early in the tournament, which were a little bit of a head scratcher.
Just to give a 2-second recap on that, NA and EU had a pretty structured league to get in. The other regions didn't. They played far fewer games, and it was probably my biggest gripe with the international scene right now is the structure is
pretty awful.
It needs to be improved. Let's
like the only matches they really had on record were show matches and the qualifying tournament, and that's it.
It's unfortunate, and hopefully it's something that they'll look into moving forward. But anyway,
that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So that covers pretty much everything that happened today on day 1. I said overall it was a fantastic experience. Some gripes here and there, but the ultimate conclusion is I think we can agree we're pretty impressed.
Yeah, I think Hi-Rez is certainly moving in the right direction. And moving forward, hopefully we see a restructure of the international scene, some kind of restructure of the way the SPL is working right now in NA and EU, because it's not like super well structured. You're playing during the week.
Right.
They're not getting a ton of viewership. Hopefully this will kind of catapult the game up to that, I don't want to say first tier, but certainly a secondary sport.
Closer to it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hope. I think that's the idea. And it's a game that certainly deserves more attention. And there's certainly a passionate fan base.
Sure.
And hopefully this will just help to expand that.
All right. So we'd like to go ahead and sign off here. Obviously, stay tuned to this channel on YouTube or esportsmax.com for the rest of our coverage. You can follow us on Twitter at esportsmax. You can follow me at GetSteinerd. You can follow Jeremy at, hang on, this is a little bit complicated, _, I am justice, _. You really need to simplify that.
I would love to, and if whoever has just at I am justice wants to give me their Twitter handle, that would be lovely.
Okay. Well, we'll get right on that.
Yeah.
All right.
If you know them, let them know I'm looking for it.
He's looking for it. All right. Anyway, so signing off. This has been Esports Max. Take care, guys.